Now I want to say this, and I'm going to say it just once.
This is today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This is TNT. Today's News Talk, live and direct. We're in the final segment, the final hour here. Big thank you to everybody in our TNT chat community. We've got great numbers this week in there. That community is just building and building. Really great to see you guys in there. That's where all the action is, folks. That's where all the best people are hanging out during this program. They're in the TNT chat room. So go on to tntradio.live. You'll see the little red bubble, lower right-hand corner. Just get in there, log in, stay logged in, and you can also access it via the app on the mobile smartphones as well. Let's bring on to the program our research assistant for the show, Kristian James, who at this point in the week is normally sharing us some very key stories, some very impactful events that we need to know more about. Kristian, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you very much, Patrick. How are you doing today, my friend?
We're doing good. It's been a bit tough this week. You know, there's a lot of things that are happening that, quite frankly, we wish weren't happening, Kristian, with the Assange case in the high courts in London right now. That's still dragging on. And, of course, this deteriorating situation in southern Gaza that's looking like it's going to get even worse by the looks of it. But before we get on to the news that you're going to be sharing with us as well, what are your comments? I want to get your thoughts on the Julian Assange case. I don't know how close you've been following it, but certainly there's been a lot of activity around this in London and in the UK. But yeah, go ahead and share with us your thoughts on the Assange situation.
Yeah, for sure. There's a dizzying amount of cloud stuff happening this past week, and it's. I wish we could say we had common sense that could be applied, but clearly it can't be. What's happened with Julian Assange, of course, is as terrible as we all know it is. I mean, we are facing potentially a gentleman going to prison in the United States for 175 years. This man deserves to be released and set free from what he revealed to the public in regards to the US and UK war crimes that happened, obviously during the war of Ireland, obviously during the Gulf War and so on, and what happened in Afghanistan. Unfortunately, so the situation still is kind of unchanged in a way. So yesterday, the results of that particular case came out. The judges really couldn't decide. There was a no decision vote passed by the end. They could not agree on what the decision was. I mean, this, I think, is going to affect what happens next. And I have to ask, I don't quite know even if they know what could happen next. Clearly, there is political pressure from the United States. The UK clearly wants to keep that relationship going. There must be pressure from Australia happening here as well. And all that sits on the judge's shoulders about what they're going to do. Will there be an extraction from the UK, potentially be picked up by US Marshals as soon as he walks out of the courtroom, and taken straight to the United States, wherever that is going to be incarcerated there. I mean, there was talk, of course, that he would not face the 175 years in prison that is potentially going to be the case. It might only be 63, which, for a gentleman of his age now, 52 years old, that is essentially still the death sentence, whichever way you slice it. You and I potentially have seen all the people who were outside, people who made their statements, Jeremy Corbyn, his wife, Piers Robinson, who was there. They were talking clearly about what this man's reputation is and what it stands to be, because journalism clearly is on the chopping block here, because whatever happens, ultimately, I think for Julian, of course, we have a man who's in a position where he's going to face the United States, as you say, but we have politics in general, journalism in general is here. And the to and fro of this is going to be difficult because it will set the precedent going forward that this can happen to anybody who reported on anything that was in those WikiLeaks documents. Any journalist who talks and speaks the truth could also be facing these kind of charges, particularly if you question the narrative that has been put forward over the last 20 years or so. I mean, generally, again, I believe to my understanding, as I read earlier today, is that if the next step that Julian Assange's lawyer team can expect, they can go to the European Courts of Human Rights for protection under Rule 39, which again is it's trying to stop the extraction happening due to his health. That will be their last vestige beyond what happens at the UK High Courts.
Indeed. I think there's going to be some consternation on this, especially with a lot of publicity that's been given to this plot to either assassinate or kidnap Assange by the CIA, by U.S. officials. Mike Pompeo is implicated. There's a federal case. We'll be talking to Matthew Lee from Inner City Press tomorrow about that SDNY federal case that they're suing the CIA and these various members of government for plotting this against Assange and spying on his legal team and so forth. Their rights have been violated. So that does put it into the political sphere, Kristian. And as we know, or as has been argued by the QCs representing Julian Assange, WikiLeaks founder, is that the extradition treaty between the United States and the UK, a key point here, it really forbids any extradition of political prisoners or people who are being persecuted politically. So with that in mind, Kristian, you've got some UK judges, British judges, that have to basically factor that in. A lot of people know about this now. Like, this has gotten really big airing publicly. I think that has a potential to swing. But will it happen? And if it does, it's going to have to be covered up by another big story at the same time. So maybe a distraction of sorts might provide some cover to sort of, mitigate the damage for the British government on this, losing face. But then they're doubling down as well. They may feel like they just can't bear to let him go after dragging him this far through 13 years arbitrary detention, Kristian. I mean, it's a pretty incredible situation.
It is. I mean, the fact that he currently has been freed of his what he was charged with. It's the US that wants to charge him with these 17 extra crimes because they need him. They want him. They want him to be basically made an example of for everyone. And he really is the character they want to assassinate in many words than others. I saw what happened with Claire Daly yesterday. She spoke very passionately about what's being done to Julian Assange. It's not just about the persecution of one man. This is about intimidating journalism. It's about squashing dissent and smothering the peace movement and silencing the voices of truth, the voices of freedom. I mean, no truer words have been said, I don't think, over the course of the last few days about what he represents to everyone, whether you're a journalist on your own, whether you're following this journey through the truth, whatever that might be, whether you're a big news corporation or whether you're someone who works in a news corp. Everyone really worth their salt should be looking at what this case is and what it represents to them as an individual, and to question authority when it happens. It should be the role of journalism, and that's what Julian did in this case. And here he is, the one behind bars. So,
yeah,
I did see Julian Assange's lawyer mentioning the fact that in 2021, there was a case, of course, of his suicide potentially, and that was the reason why he was not extracted back then, due to his severe ill health. The fact that Julian has not appeared in court this time due to ill health for the 20th and the 21st and now today, it also speaks to the case of what we have mentally put this man through. I mean, we talk all the time as a country, as it were, about mental health and what we do to people. And here we are holding a man behind bars for essentially doing his job. Yeah,
unconvicted. He's not convicted of any crimes. He's being held on a spurious bail jumping charge dating back to 2010 for a Swedish sex case that got dropped 3 times and is now null and void. Like, literally, that's the basis of his incarceration. Very convenient, very political. And I might add that a man by the name of, way back Crown Prosecution Services, I think his name was Kier something. He was responsible for keeping Assange on ice. Oh, it's the labor leader, Kier Starmer. I'm sorry, I forgot his last name. Yeah, how did he factors into this story with Assange? He was kind of rewarded after that, maybe. I mean, you can look at it that way. Did get his knighthood, but, we're not sort of, casting any dispersions or anything untoward here. We're just commenting on what an incredible coincidence all that was. But isn't that how things go in politics?
It is. Everyone has to essentially take their backhand. I mean, I guess if we talk about Kier Starmer, did you want to transition to the point of that happened yesterday in Parliament?
Yes.
Parliament was
what happened? What happened? El Basil tried to explain this. He tried to explain this, Kristian, but just the chaos of us trying to moderate the Gaza debate at the same time. Give us your boiled down synopsis of the absolute farrago we saw yesterday.
So it was interesting. I saw how the news teams, so in terms of how I saw it, I saw how the news teams were trying to cover it in the 20 minutes after, and they could not describe what there's GB News and it was Sky and BBC. They were saying something's happening in Parliament, something to do with the SNP, Labour, and they can't quite work out what's going on. It was very interesting seeing how the news couldn't explain it either. So the fact that Basil had an issue as well, it speaks volumes to what happened. So I've got a bit of a slant on this, as I often do. So effectively, you had the SNP wanted to, and rightfully so, put their point forward in regards to the ceasefire that they want to happen for humanitarian reasons in Gaza, of course, what's happening with Israel, as we all know. So what happened? The Speaker, the House of Commons, Sir Leslie, he wanted to put that vote before the debate that they wanted to talk about, which was to stop the ceasefire. And because they did that, the Tories and the SNP went, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. That is not the political process that we go through. So not necessarily what the topic was, but the process is what they walked out for. And there were some really interesting comments that were made at that time. I made some notes of them. So Penny Mordaunt, of course, she's the Commons leader as well. She says that Sir Lindsay hijacked the debate to undermine the confidence in the House against long-standing rules and Labour's bid to amend what the SNP said, because they wanted to add the SNP's position that they wanted to have a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. She then basically withdrew the government's amendment on this. And from this point here, the Tories got all their Israel flags up in the air, and we're like, this is shameful, you can't do this. Our process has been being eroded here. You're attacking democracy, and they got all up and they walked out together with the SNP. Not everyone did, but what it meant was the majority of the people in the House at that time, therefore, were the Labour members. So effectively, you then had an almost Labour agreement that this amendment could pass, and this is what they're going to vote on. And then a little bit later on, Lindsay came forward and had to apologise for breaking the ministerial code and changing the practice of the order of things, because he wanted the vote, because of what it represents, to be more well represented. And why you might think that sounds like a really interesting and great thing to do, and it does come perhaps from a good place. But there is the task of this is that Labour, of course, is heavily sponsored by the Israel lobby, so up to 40%. So you have here, and particularly Lindsay Hoyle, who is the Speaker of the House, his father actually set up the Friends of Israel lobby in the Labour Party. So it's very unlikely that they would have a Gaza sympathetic position, because, of course, they represent more of the Israel lobby. So that was this weird talking point on the news last night, that how can this be the case? Because Labour does receive 40% of its money from Israel's optics, shall we say. So this is what I think. This is how the optics, I think, were at play here. I think they actually tried to stop the vote from happening. And how they did this is because of the, I wrote it here, I do apologise. So it's almost as if Labour wanted to wring its hands and say, look, we've had a vote, but it was stopped in Parliament because we stopped the parliamentary process. So to their members who make up the Labour, people who put their money in, people who are Labour supporters, people who are predominantly left-orientated supporters, who agree, like as we do and many others do, that the ceasefire should happen and Israel should stop bombing Gaza, because therefore the Israel lobby is the one paying for this. To save face, they stopped the vote from going ahead, even though they were the ones who put the vote forward. To save face to its own members, they could say, hey, we did this, we tried, but the process was stopped because we changed parliamentary position. Well, what's happening now, as in I heard today, is that there's now calls for Lindsay to actually be removed as the House of Commons Speaker. There's also calls now for Kier Starmer, who may well have arranged to have that situation occur.
Oh, you bet also he did.
Face. Yes, you know he did.
Bet he did. Yeah.
So for that almost double play that happened in front of the world, in front of Parliament, to stop that happening, to save face. He may now face being extradited by his own party. But in the last 3 weeks, 3 Labour member MPs have also faced the chop due to anti-Semitic comments, because they obviously have Muslim members who obviously represent their parties, and they, by their political position and by their faith positions, do agree with what's happening for the Gazan people, with the Palestinians. So they have now faced being told to leave the party. I believe two members have been suspended, and they've got what's coming up very soon, of course, is the election campaigns. They've been told that they cannot run for their constituencies in their respective areas. So Labour right now is in an absolute mess. And this, perhaps, is some kind of a way to play both sides against each other while still keeping the money coming in from the Israeli lobby.
Unbelievable. Nobody's interfering in our democracy in the U.S. and Britain, though, Kristian. Absolutely. This is just totally normal, totally par for the course. No problem. Nothing to see here. Move along. They haven't gutted the Labour Party in the last 3 or 4 years. No, that hasn't happened. It's all good. Everything's good and democratic in Britain and the U.S. on this, especially on this issue. Unbelievable. This is the issue that's going to break democracy in the West. Kristian, I thought you did a pretty good job breaking down that circus on the floor in the House of Commons, about as good as you can do, because as we know, politics is a very nebulous and messy business, and all is not always what it appears to be on the surface. Any final comments on that situation? And I know we've got another big story I want to tackle with you, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think my only last real thought about it, and it really is nebulous, is that clearly Parliament is not leading the agenda by the majority. Those who are voting for those political party members to be in the positions that they are, those MPs are actually clearly taking their money from the special interest groups, and that's the ones they are trying to keep appeased, as opposed to the people that are voting and keeping them in position. That really is my kind of final thought on that, really.
Yeah, and then look at the British government, probably one of the leading governments, the MOD, very, very much involved in the hostilities in the Middle East. Of course, we know the United States is; they're the main sponsor, but there's no shortage of scandals on the British defense side either. What's the latest?
Well, I guess so. Yesterday, the UK faced another embarrassment. So not only did we have the Julian Assange case, not only have we got what's happening in Parliament yesterday, we've been thrown egg on our face, quite literally, in regards to our Ministry of Defence, our weapons and our military faced a serious misfire. And I don't use that phrase incorrectly, because yesterday we actually tested our nuclear launch capability. One of our submarines off the east coast of America was doing its tests as part of the NATO drill exercise, and more just making sure that our deterrent still works. However, it didn't work. It launched its missile through the surface of the water, quite spectacularly to all the press watching. I don't know why you need the press to be watching this. The missile literally limped to one side and fell into the water. It didn't launch correctly. And then I started looking around data for a bit more about it, trying to understand what it was that I'm facing. I'm watching our military and it's our nuclear deterrent not work. Apparently, the last time it was tested was in 2016, where it also didn't work. And you'd have thought they would have tested. In fact, we have a nuclear deterrent system. We have our 4 nuclear powered submarines. We have allegedly 48 nuclear material weapons in our arsenal to fire at any one time. And clearly, we've never tested them since 2016. They didn't work. They were never tested again. Now, as in, they weren't armed, as it were. They were just the missile firing mechanism. But yesterday, of course, it launched and it fired. It flopped over. It didn't work so well. So we were left in a position now where our engineering, is it the propellant? Is it a programming error? Is there something what's causing the missiles not to fly? Is it the water getting into the device? Who knows? But you'd have thought they would have sorted that out before they had the military programs, the military drills that they've been running. Because, of course, for the last few weeks, we've heard everything from our Ministry of Defence, Grant Shapps, talking about the fact that we potentially are going to be facing a draft. We're potentially going to be facing going to war within the next 4 to 8 years against aggressors such as China and Russia, in his estimation, because they are very likely to happen. And here we are. We have, 24 ships? In the last few weeks, we've had the embarrassment of the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier the propeller didn't work. It was not sent to the Mediterranean to support the aircraft battle group over there. We are also, the Prince of Wales also faces the very same issue. Also found out that it doesn't have some of the technology on board that it was supposed to have when it was supposed to launch also to join the same carrier group. So one was supposed to support the other, haven't launched either. So they are still left in dock, and one's out in the Atlantic Ocean waiting to be towed back. So our military is facing just a situation that is just embarrassing, particularly when it's NATO's largest drill that is still currently going on. We have troops over in Estonia. We have troops over in Norway, in training in sub-ice conditions. And here we are, we have equipment that doesn't work. And when you think about they want to match up against Russia, they want to keep poking the great bear in the north about what this is going to be, and we're trying to oppose them in lots of different ways. And here we are with essentially a system of military, a system of solutions and technologies, and a background information here that doesn't work. We have stripped our military to the bone. We've been talking about that maybe for the last 15 years or so, about how bad our military is supported financially, how bad our capability is. It's not very good. We've stripped back all our armed forces in the UK. Now we're left with a bare bones force and equipment that doesn't work. Yet here we are, waving the saber to go to war. It doesn't make sense for what we are trying to do and what we are capable of. I mean, have you been seeing this as well, Patrick?
Well, I see you're a little old-fashioned, Kristian. You're so obsessed with weapons and military capability. I think there's been some tremendous strides in the military. They've really embraced the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. So if there's going to be conscription, you better believe it's going to be diverse with the conscripting. There's going to be more trans people that are going to be represented in the battle groups, as well as women on the front line. Certainly, these are all very important things. So yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, why have any restrictions on, things like education? That's all passé. You don't need to have any math competency or any of that. In fact, you can enter the engineering corps having not gone to university, in fact. So, I mean, I can't see what could possibly go wrong with an absolutely ironclad diversity strategy like that, because isn't that the most important thing going forward?
It is diversity, equity, inclusion at all levels, no matter what the business is, even if it includes our defense forces. We're engaging in full spectrum warfare, but clearly those controlling the computers are too busy making TikTok videos.
No, we can win this battle against the autocrats by showing them how much democracy we've got. We've got so much darn democracy. We are diverse right across the board and proud of it. Launch the unicorn brigades. That's what we say. Kristian, I know it's crazy. We're making jokes about this stuff, but it is kind of a ridiculous situation. Not least of all, the amount of money they spend on these programs, and they're not even operational. How much does an aircraft carrier cost in 2024? I'm sure it's not cheap.
No, apparently so. Just the repairs alone apparently cost $12 billion, from what I read a couple of days ago, and that was the Elizabeth aircraft carrier. So it's not cheap, particularly when our rivals, shall we say, on the arms spectrum can make it and their steel much cheaper. In order to put steel on our ships, we have to import it from the same said country. I don't know what that tells you. Well,
there's also the issue of trying to find planes to have on deck of these aircraft carriers, planes that actually can fly missions. I mean, hey, it's kind of it's an afterthought, I guess. Aircraft carrier, planes on top, but apparently it's an issue. So, yeah, I mean, the Houthis aren't quaking in their boots over these sort of problems, are they? And isn't that really the point that, the West, NATO, they're just not prepared for combined warfare? And why do we need to fight wars anyway? Why don't we just have great diplomatic relations and trade relations with all these countries? That's totally possible, but it's not happening. So here we are. We're in this conundrum right now. Kristian James, our research assistant for the show, really appreciate your input on TNT, today's news talk this week. All important stories. I think we did a pretty good job of hitting them pretty hard between the eyes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'll speak to you soon.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. That is Kristian James. A big thank you as well to Basil Valentine and Dr. Zachary Foster in the first hour. This has been another powerful program wait till you see what we got lined up tomorrow. Equally as powerful. We're going to be hitting hard on the ground in the Middle East with special guests, booking them now and talking to them as we speak to prepare those segments. So stay tuned. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, and with Matt Lee from inside the Southern District of New York Court with the WikiLeaks Julian Assange case that's going on there too. That has direct bearing on the extradition case as well. We'll get all that and more. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. It's been real, been great. Appreciate you guys. See you tomorrow.
Hear a replay.